I wanted to talk to you about a mindset trick, okay? For those of you that don't know me, I struggled with anxiety for literally 30 years. And so do our 3 children. They've all struggled with anxiety at various moments. And my daughter used to have this word for it. It's called the what if loop. That when you get trapped in your mind, you start thinking about what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this goes wrong? What if I fail and somebody critiques me? What if this person judges me? What if that happens? What if they say this and I don't know what to say? What if my friends judge me? What if they think I'm weird? What if they think I'm silly? You can get trapped spinning what if thoughts all the time, okay? And so I want to give you a super simple trick that you can use to interrupt the what if loop. And it comes from both the research that I've done about having a high five attitude and empowering and encouraging yourself. And the reason why having a high five attitude is so important is because when you believe in yourself and your ability to face anything, when you believe in your ability through your attitude and your actions to have a positive impact on anything that you're dealing with in life, that's the secret to success. It doesn't remove the obstacles. It doesn't change the circumstances that you're dealing with. It changes you and your ability to face those circumstances and tap into the resilience and the courage and the confidence and the strength that is in you that is waiting to help you. That's what a high five attitude is. It's realistic optimism. Okay, there's a gentleman walking in front of our car. Okay. So I was talking with Jenny, who's got her camera aimed at me. Jenny Maloney, if you need a phenomenal photographer. Hussein, who is my favorite person, Tev, to drive. And our COO and my fabulous sister-in-law, Christine. So we were sitting here talking. Jenny literally decided 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, about a month ago. That where she was living was sucking her soul dry. Mm-hmm. She'd been thinking about it. How many of you have been thinking about, is this the right place for me to live? Should I move? Should I try somewhere new? Even if it's just like, I don't like this apartment or this neighborhood or my roommates. Have you experienced this? I have been experiencing this for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Every time I would take off and land in a new city, I would allow my mind to wander. Could I live here? Could I live here? Mm-hmm. Is it Austin, Texas? Is it San Diego? Is it Nashville? Mm-hmm. Is it Portland, Maine? I even considered Portland, Maine. Yeah, it's cool.
It's cool. So she literally decided 4 weeks ago to honor that feeling inside of her. And the second that you started honoring that feeling, like, maybe I should move, even though my family lives here, even though people are going to be upset, maybe we need a change. When you feel depleted, when you feel like every morning you wake up and you don't want to high five your life, that's a signal. That means you got to dig deep and figure out what you really want. And you got to do some soul searching, and you got to find your strength and your courage to face and be honest with yourself about what's not working and make a change. So that's exactly what Jenny did. But when you start to get honest with yourself that you're not happy with your life, any aspect of it, you don't want to high five that relationship. You don't want to high five your friend group. You don't want to high five where you live. You don't want to high five that job. That's when the storm kicks in your mind. Because then you go, well, what if I'm wrong? And what if I don't have new friends? And what if it doesn't work? And what if this? And what if that? And what if the other thing? What if I don't sell my house? What if my kids don't like the new school? What are some other things that you had about it?
What if I don't find somewhere to live? What if my house doesn't sell? What if I'm making a big mistake?
Yeah, what if I'm making a big mistake?
And I was terrified. And I thought that was my gut trying to tell me something, but no, any big change is freaking terrifying.
Yes, terrifying. Just expect that, okay? So if you don't high five your life right now, that's all the sign that you need to change. Then your mind is going to kick into what if mode to keep you paralyzed where you are, because your mind does not want you to change. It thinks change is scary. This is where you're going to use this little high five attitude flip. And I'm going to let Jenny tell it to you. What is the flip? Just tell them what that flip is. Instead of going, what if this is a mistake? What if this goes wrong? What if it doesn't work out? What do you say instead?
What if everything does work out?
What if everything works out?
Mm-hmm. I know it's so simple, but it's so profound.
What
you imagine if you went through life thinking, what if it works out for me? What if I make this big change and I actually love my new life? What if I start exercising and I love it? What if I decide to move and it all works out for me? What if I start this side business and it works out? Imagine placing a bet on yourself. That is how you have a high five attitude. You place a bet on yourself, on your dreams, on what you want, and it can be as simple as swatting away that bullshit. What if it fails? What if it doesn't work? What if my friends judge me? What if I'm unhappy? Look, there are very few things that are, I know, I'm really red. It's because I'm sort of having a hot flash right now. I keep it very real. There's no filter that I can have. I'm 53 years old. This is the kind of that happens to me. But what if, all those what ifs, you don't know if they're true or not. Are they serving you? What if it doesn't work? What if that? What if the other thing? What if, ooh, scaredy cat, paralyzed? Do you like that? How about you flip it? How about you get a high five attitude on? What if it all works out for me? What if it's hard in the beginning? And then a month from now, I look up and go, holy shit, this was the best decision I ever made. What if quitting your job is the scariest thing, but it all works out for you? What if ending that toxic relationship makes you feel scared and you dread being alone again? But what if 2 months from now, when you invest in building back a relationship with yourself, you can look in the mirror and you go, wow, it's all working out for me. That was exactly what needed to happen. What if the heartbreak that you're dealing with or the pain that you're dealing with, what if it's all just a dot on the map of your life connecting you to something amazing? What if it's preparing you for something? What if it all works out for you? You know, betting against yourself makes you feel miserable. Staying in situations that you don't want to high five, that make you feel depleted, it's the reason why you're not happy and fulfilled. I want you to start putting a bet on you, on your intuition, on your happiness, on what your heart and soul are screaming at you to do. If you can't high five every aspect of your life, I want you to stand in front of that mirror and start to get honest with yourself. I want you to get a piece of paper out and put a pen in your hand and start writing down what the do you want? What does a high five life look like to you? And you know what's interesting about using the term a high five life? You know exactly what that means. I don't even have to explain it. It's a life where every day, even on the hard days, you still want to wake up and high five what's happening. You're still waking up surrounded by people and playing a game that's worth playing to you. It's personal to you. And I'm here to tell you, you start to develop the daily habits of encouraging yourself. What if it all works out? What if this is actually the best decision I've ever made? What if it's really difficult and going through this is going to make me a better version of myself? What if 6 months from now, after I make this change, I'm going to look in the mirror and it's not that you're not going to recognize yourself. You ready? You're actually going to recognize yourself. The you that's in there, the one that you're ignoring and criticizing. What if it all works out for you? That's my message for you today. I want you to take on that high five attitude. What if it all works out for you? I'm sitting here high-fiving you every step of the way because I believe that something amazing is happening in your life. I sense something extraordinary is about to happen for you. And when you start to leverage a high-five attitude, what if it works out? What if this is the best decision I've ever made? A really difficult one, but what if this is the best decision I've ever made? You know, I love to say that you're one decision away from a different life. So make the decision away to swat away those negative thoughts and bring up that high five attitude. What if it all works out for me? Believe, anchor down in hope and optimism and faith and in celebration of yourself and your ability to pivot your life anytime you choose. That's what's available to you. The second you decide to just get that negative shit out of your mind and adopt that high five attitude, because I do believe that I sense something incredible, extraordinary is going to happen for you. But first, you got to start to say, what if it works out for me? What if this is the best decision I've ever made? What if I place a bet on myself for a change? Wouldn't that be cool? I think it would be. Right now, I'm sitting in a hotel room in Salt Lake City. I've got about an hour before I've got to cross the street and head over to the convention center and give a speech. But something happened this morning where I caught myself going down a rabbit hole. I started worrying about something. Then the worries became even bigger. And I realized I'm doing that thing. I'm doing that thing where I am causing myself a lot of pain because I am catastrophizing. So many of us struggle with this. You may struggle with this, where your mind is constantly defaulting to what's going to go wrong, or you're always dwelling on problems that haven't happened yet. And so I thought, why don't I just jump on the mic while I have a little bit of time here and explain what just happened to me, because I know you're going to relate to it. So here's the deal. So I wake up and I roll out of bed and I start my normal morning routine and I pick up my phone. And one of the reasons why I picked up my phone is because our oldest child, our daughter Sawyer, who's 24 years old, is in the middle of a solo backpacking trip on the other side of the world. And this is something she's wanted to do for a long time. It's really well planned out. And of course, because I'm her mother, because I worry, I am tracking her location. And we're all on WhatsApp. We're in a family group text. And right now, she is in Australia, and she had planned as part of her itinerary that she was going to go on a couple solo hikes. Cue the worry. Okay, I got my 24-year-old daughter, backpack on her back, in a country she's never been to. Obviously, it's relatively safe, but that does not prevent me from coming up with all kinds of fantasies in my mind about what could go wrong. And so I've been pretty good. I've been really good. You know, I have been able to just enjoy from afar and not become a stalker. But something happened that caused me to spiral this morning. She summited this mountain in Australia to see a sunrise 2 days ago. And I haven't heard from her. And I go to track her location. And I'm like, where is she? And it's sort of rainbow wheeling, so I can't quite see where she is. And I know she's okay because she posted something on social media. But I woke up this morning and I immediately looked at my WhatsApp. There was no message from her in the family group chat. There was no message from her directly to me. I then went to Instagram. I looked in the DMs. There was no DM from her. And I started to panic. And what did my mind think? I'm almost embarrassed to tell you. Why don't you just step in my shoes for a minute? What do you think Mel Robbins was thinking, knowing that her daughter had summited a mountain alone? It's like a 5-mile hike up. She started at 4 o'clock in the morning to see the sunrise. We saw the photos of the sunrise. Haven't heard from her since. What do you think my mind is thinking right now? It's been 48 hours. She's on the other side of the world. Oh, you know. I'm not thinking, oh, I bet she met some friends and she's out having fun. Or maybe her phone died. Or you know what, Mel? Maybe she's so busy that she doesn't have time to talk to you, because the whole point of her trip is not to keep you posted of her whereabouts. It's for her to go out and have this incredible experience and to grow and to discover and to be brave and to explore. That's not what my mind thought. Nope. You know what my mind thought? She's dead. She fell off the mountain after taking the sunrise photo. The woman is dead. Then I thought, no, maybe she got kidnapped. Then I thought, oh, no, she was sexually assaulted on the side of the trail. And somebody, this is disgusting, I know, but do not tell me that you don't do the same thing. That your mind goes dark. I'm talking gruesome, scary horror movie, dark, like in a nanosecond. And here's the thing. I know that this is a terrible thing to do. I know that this causes me pain. And I bet you do it too. I know you do, in fact, because I've seen the DMs that you write to me, whether it's you are worried about your money and you're constantly worried about something bad happening with your money or getting fired or forgetting about something for your kids. And that's where your brain is constantly settling. And here's what we're going to do today, because we're all guilty of this. There's so much research around the fact that worry is so painful in your life. Worry is a habit. This is a really, really bad spiral to get into. It causes you a lot of pain. It causes you a lot of stress. It can certainly bring on anxiety. And if you already struggle with a little bit of anxiety, it can make it a lot worse. It doesn't help with your confidence. And 1 out of 3 people, according to research, struggle with constant worrying. And so what I want to share with you today is a 6-word sentence that I use all the time in these moments when I catch my mind spiraling. And it really helps. And it really helps me because it stops that freight train of bad and negative and catastrophic thoughts. And here's the 6 words. You ready? This is what I say to myself. What if it all works out? So as I'm standing this morning in my underwear, I don't even have a bra on this morning, and I've already visualized my daughter falling to her death off of a cliff in the middle of nowhere in Australia. I'm brushing my teeth, and I'm starting to notice my anxiety rising. It's 6:15 in the morning here, and I have inflicted self-torture on myself before I've had a glass of water or a cup of coffee. This is completely unnecessary. And I catch myself. And this is what I want to teach you to do, because you need to start catching yourself. I think you and I can agree that we can't control anything that's happening outside of us, right? But we can certainly control our reaction to it. And so I'm standing there in my underwear. I'm visualizing my daughter's death or the fact that she's been kidnapped and abducted. And I notice the stress rise, and I say to myself, Mel, what if it all works out? What if it all works out? I mean, you can't argue with that, right? What if it all works out? Because in this moment where you're worried about getting fired, or you're worried about forgetting something for your kids, or you're worried about what will happen if the people that you love the most are going to die before you can say goodbye. Or this one happens for me a lot. I'll be sitting on a plane and it's taking off, and I suddenly spiral and think, if this plane crashes, I'm not going to see my daughter's wedding. I'm not going to meet my grandkids. I'm not going to get to do all this stuff that I really want to do in my life. And in that moment where I'm in the negative, what if this, what if that, what if the other thing? And I feel the pain rising, and I feel the stress rising, and I feel the self-inflicted torture coming on, I simply drop in those 6 words. What if it all works out? And here's what happens. It stops the spiral. That's the first thing that happens. What if it all works out? You just hit the brakes on the locomotive of worry. The second thing that happens is, because it's a question, what if it all works out? You actually pause for a second and consider it. And what you realize when you stop for a second and you pause and you consider, what if it all works out, is you don't actually know what's going to happen, do you? You're just choosing to make yourself believe that something terrible has already happened. But the truth is, in this moment, you don't know. And so it is a fact, a logical fact, that it could all work out. And in fact, based on the research, this is kind of amazing. I want to throw some research at you. Let me find this. You can hear me flipping through my papers because there's a lot of really interesting stuff. There is a study at Penn State where they looked at chronic worrying. And the average person has 3 to 4 major worries a day, okay? What if I get fired? What if I'm not happy? What if my marriage ends? Will I find love and have children? What if I don't make the money? What if this? What if that? What if the other thing? All these worries that every single one of us, you and me, we have at least 3 or 4 of them that cause us stress or make us feel some level of pain. According to this Penn State study, 91% of those worries are completely false. It's self-inflicted torture. And I think you and I both know that. And here's the other really kind of interesting thing. You know, the other 9% of the worries that do happen, the outcome is almost always way better than you expected. Period. Okay? The outcome is way better than you expected about a third of the time. So what does this mean? This means that you going, what if it's a disaster? What if this happens? What if she's fallen off a cliff? What if I never hear from her again? What if she doesn't? Bah, 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 bah. What if it all works out? See, you don't know, do you? You don't know if you're getting fired. You don't know if you're going to run out of money, but you can rely on the research that 91% of the time it doesn't happen, and a third of the 9% of the remaining, it's way better than you thought, and that leaves you with a 6% chance that something might happen. And here's how I look at this. If something bad happens, I will deal with it then. Why do I need to torture myself now when I don't even know if something amazing is happening or something bad is happening? And so what if it all works out is a way for you to catch yourself, because you and I inflict so much pain, and it is pain. It's pain when you do this to yourself. It was painful to stand in the bathroom here in Salt Lake in my underwear, brushing my teeth, thinking about my daughter's death. And it's completely ridiculous. It's not like, give me a break, Mel. Give me a freaking break. And I know all our fans right now in Australia and New Zealand are like, oh, she's fine. Like that is ridiculous, Mel. It is so fabulous. People do this all the time. They hike that trail. It's wide. It's this. It's that. I know the mountain you're talking about because she went up for the sunrise. You're completely ridiculous. That's why you need this 6-word sentence. What if it all works out? Because it will interrupt the spiral. And what we're going to talk about next is why it's important to interrupt the spiral. You know this based on common sense. Why go through life torturing yourself? Why allow your mind to dwell in worries about things that either haven't happened or problems that haven't resulted yet or situations that are beyond your control? Why do this? And I'm here to tell you, I don't want you to do this. And I want to bring in some spirituality real quick, because there is this saying in Buddhism that I think is so beautiful, and it's so relevant to what you and I are talking about right now. You ready? So in Buddhism, any time that you or I suffer from some kind of misfortune, and the misfortune might just be that you haven't heard from somebody in a couple days, or it might just be that you got a bad annual review at work, or it might just be that you suddenly got a bill or a diagnosis that scares the living daylights out of you, okay? Anytime that a human being suffers some kind of misfortune in life, there are 2 arrows that get fired. You ready? The first arrow hits you when the painful event occurs. So this is the arrow that gets fired at you, like right in your heart. And for me this morning, as small of an example as it is, grabbing my phone, looking for my daughter's location, seeing a rainbow wheel instead of some sort of location at a hostel, thinking about the fact that I haven't heard from her since I saw the sunrise photo 2 days ago. That moment, was an arrow. Your arrow might be that somebody breaks up with you. It might be the number on the scale. It might be, again, that bill that just arrived and you're like, I don't have $1,000 to fix my car right now. It might be that you didn't get into the school you wanted to get into. It might be that you start coughing and you're really worried about something going on because there's something that is a health diagnosis in your family. There is the first arrow. Boom, hits, right? The second arrow that gets fired is your reaction to what just happened. It's the arrow that you fire at yourself based on what you think next. And when you start to understand that life is going to fire arrows at you all the time, the research shows you get at least 3 or 4 a day, that triggers you to worry. The worry, the anxiety, the catastrophizing, that is the second arrow. And it causes you so much pain. And I'm going to prove this to you based on some research studies that they've done about how anticipatory worry or being afraid of something or this kind of negative thinking lights up the pain pathways in your brain. And I love this visual of the two arrows in life, right? That anytime you suffer misfortune, boom, two arrows fly in the air. The first one is fired by life. It hits you right in the heart. And the second arrow is the arrow that you fire right into your forehead. It's your reaction. And that adds pain. And this is also a concept that has been studied and researched extensively in psychology. What psychologists and psychiatrists call this is having a primary and secondary emotional response. So your primary emotional response is your immediate reaction to having something bad happen, or a fear of yours, or some sort of expectation that you have. The secondary emotion that you feel, this is the thing that lingers, is the emotions that you sit with in reaction to it. So examples of this might be that when somebody dies, you have a primary emotion of profound shock and sadness and despair. It's that just avalanche that hits you. But the secondary emotion is the grief that can last a long time. And what we know based on research is that you don't really have a lot of control on the primary emotion. But there are a tremendous number of things that you can do in order to shorten the experience of the secondary emotion that you have. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that second arrow, the pain you cause yourself. And we're talking about it specifically based on the pain that worrying and catastrophizing, assuming the worst, what that's doing to your health, to your mindset, to your nervous system, to your attitude, and to your ability to experience more joy and fulfillment in your life. And that's why I'm on a mission today to both stop myself from firing that second arrow at my forehead and interrupt it, grab it out of the air, so that I can assume something really good is happening. I can assume that it's all going to work out, and I can stop torturing myself with all this shit that I'm making up anyway. And I want you to do the exact same thing. All right, so let's take a quick pause. I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry. This is all going to work out. I'll be right back. Welcome back. It's your friend Mel, and you and I are sitting here, and I was just confessing to you that I did a whole worry spiral this morning, and I'm teaching you one of my favorite tools, the 6-sentence word, what if it all works out? We need to know that it is painful to stand there and be terrified that you're going to not be able to say goodbye to somebody that you love because you're scared of flying and now you're sitting in an airplane seat. And when you say to yourself, what if it all works out? You know what it's like? It's like, okay, life just fired an arrow at you. And I want you to stop and think right now, okay? What is an arrow that life fired at you? And think about something going on in your life right now. And in order to get you thinking about this, I'm going to bring in our global audience because I knew I wanted to talk about this. So we put up something on Instagram real quick, and you guys respond like, oh my gosh, moths to a flame. It's incredible. I love you. And I asked, what would your life be like if you didn't worry about anything? And what are you worrying about right now? And so let me tell you some of the arrows that life is throwing at people. I'm scared of flying. This is Sylvia. And I always worry because I feel out of control that I'm going to die on the plane flight. And here's the second arrow. You ready? That she's firing. What if I can't say goodbye? What if this is it? That's the second arrow. It's fine to be afraid of flying, but why are you torturing yourself with all these horrible thoughts? Instead, I want you to reach up and grab that second arrow that you're aiming at yourself with your worries in midair. I want you to yank it out of the air by going, what if it all works out? What if this plane lands? What if I not only get to see all these people that I love and say goodbye, but I'm the last one standing in my family. I outlive them all. What if it all works out? Here's another one. Maggie, annual reviews are coming up. Mm-hmm. Boom, that's an arrow in the heart. That's the first arrow. It is nerve-wracking. That's true. But why does Maggie need to go, what if I get fired? What if I'm the one that gets laid off? What's going to happen to my kids? How am I going to pay for groceries? That is the second arrow. That's why you need, what if it all works out? You reach up, you grab it, you grab it, you grab it, you grab it. Here's another one. Here's a really, really important one from Gabby. I'm going through a divorce. Boom, arrow straight to the heart. Even when you know it's the best thing, it's still painful, isn't it? That's what happens in your life. But the second arrow, what if I never, ever have the life that I actually want? You got to stop that shit from hitting your head. You got to stop firing that stuff right at yourself. That's why you got to reach up with these 6 words. What if it all works out? What if it all works out? What if getting divorced is painful, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me? What if this divorce is really challenging right now, but I'm going to emerge stronger and a better version of myself, and my kids are going to be better, and that's going to open the door to me being in a healthier, more supportive relationship? What if this is the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it's the hardest thing that ever happened to me? Isn't that awesome? This is how you stop firing that second arrow at yourself. Here's another one. There are natural disasters in the news all the time in the area that I live in. That's an arrow every time you see a natural disaster. But why do you have to fire the second one at yourself? What if the mudslide takes out my house? What if the volcano erupts here? What if the floods come and they wipe out that thing? It hasn't happened yet. So why on earth are you causing yourself this pain? I'll tell you why. Because we're used to doing it. This is what we do reflexively. Life fires an arrow and then we fire the second one. And so this is why what if it all works out isn't just putting lipstick on a pig or icing a shitty situation over with some like positive gloss. This is actually using science to combat your shitty habits of torturing yourself. This is you intervening with logic, because if something bad hasn't happened, how does worrying about it help you right now? If you don't know what's actually going to happen, how does worrying about it or assuming the worst case going to make things better? It's not. In fact, you experience the pain twice because you experience the anticipation of it. And let's just say you are going to get fired. And look, I've been fired twice. I've been literally brought into somebody's office and told I'm doing a terrible job and let go. It is the worst. And then the second you leave, once you get over the humiliation of the whole thing, it's the most liberating thing that ever happens to you, because you typically only get fired from a job that you can't stand anyway, or that you know that you're not performing in, which is the case. But I knew it was coming. I just could feel it. I tortured myself for a month. I didn't need to do that because it didn't change the outcome. If anything, it made me experience it over and over and over. And I'll tell you, anticipating it, way worse than what actually happened. If I had just said to myself for those 30 days, what if it all works out, Mel? What if you do get fired and it's the best thing that ever happened? What if you're not going to get fired, but this is a wake-up call for you to step it up and actually start performing a little bit better? It allows you to stop experiencing so much pain. Actually, yesterday, I did this before I flew to Salt Lake because I was racing around the house. I couldn't find my freaking computer charger. I couldn't find my passport. I couldn't find the bag that I normally put my travel equipment in. And I was racing around. I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I only have 15 minutes before I got to go. What if I don't find that? And I was like, Mel, stop. What if it all works out? What if you suddenly find the charger? Or better yet, you're an adult. You can get to an airport and buy a charger. So instead of literally firing arrows at yourself, you could stop firing it and focus. And that's why this is super, super important. I'm going to talk about the other reason why it's critical that you not escalate situations with this unnecessary worrying, okay? Here, let me give you some other ones from our audience. Oh, Natalie. Anytime I see somebody else happy, boom, arrow to the heart. That's what's happening around you. Then she fires a second one. What if I'm never going to find my person? Does worrying about that help you find your person? No. It actually makes you feel more insecure. And this is where I want to go next, because here's the thing. There is a profound connection between catastrophizing and aiming these arrows at yourself and the pain that you feel and how it impacts your ability to problem solve, to think clearly. This all comes from research out of UCLA from Dr. Judith Willis. I wrote about this extensively for my research in the High Five Habit book. We interviewed Dr. Judith Willis for that book and dug into her research. And she is pioneering all of this research around the connection between your nervous system and the ability for you to do what's called executive function. Executive function is basically the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex part of your brain, your forehead, basically, for those of us kind of everyday people. It's your ability to problem solve. It's your ability to make strategic decisions. It's your ability to think clearly. When you start aiming that second arrow, my daughters must have fallen off a cliff. I haven't heard from her. Something terrible has happened. I'm going to get fired. I'm never going to be happy again. I'm never going to get this weight off. And the pain and the pain and the pain that comes with doing that to yourself. It sets off the alarm, the fight or flight or freeze part of your nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system it's called. And when the alarm nervous system is going off, it impairs the cognitive functioning in your brain. It impacts decision making. It impacts your ability to focus. It impacts your ability to problem solve. And so you're not only firing a second arrow at yourself, which causes so much pain, you are also firing that arrow right into the center of your forehead. And it impacts your ability to think clearly, to solve a problem. And here's why this is important. Let's just say, for those of you that are really skeptical and you're like, but Mel, what if something bad does happen? What if your daughter did fall off of a cliff and she's laying there with a broken clavicle and she needs help? I'll tell you what, if I don't hear from her in 72 hours, I need to move into problem solving mode, right? Is it going to help me solve a problem halfway around the world if I've shot an arrow into the center of my forehead and I've worked myself into such a state that I can't think clearly? No. And so even if the worst case scenario that you're terrified about happens, your ability to face it, to problem solve through it, to think clearly about your options, it is severely impaired by this constant worrying that you are doing. And that's why this is so important. What if it all works out? It doesn't guarantee that it will. It guarantees that you will stay calm, that you will stay focused, that you will stay present, and that you will stay positive until you know otherwise. And that's everything. All right, I'm going to hit the pause real quick. I got to run to the bathroom because I have a feeling that I'm going to be talking to you right up until the time I got to race out of this hotel room to go give a speech. Don't go anywhere. I got more that I want to share with you, including a lot of really cool research. Stay with me. Welcome back. It's your pal Mel, and we're talking about the 6 words that I use that magically just boom, silences the worry spiral and my anxiety. What if it all works out? Okay. And another thing I'm going to confess to you is that until I stumbled on this, what if it all works out, I didn't realize how much I was doing this to myself. I basically walked around life with a second arrow in my head because I was constantly worried about something, constantly thinking something bad was going to happen. And, you know, some of the experts that we've had on this podcast that talk about trauma or talk about the impact of growing up in a chaotic household or experiencing abuse or being the kind of person that felt like as a kid, you were always waiting for the other shoe to drop. You were super hyper vigilant. This is very, very common for people like us. That is me. Miss looking around the corners, what is the bad thing that's going to happen, anticipating things. And what I'm here to tell you is that if you start to really lean into what I'm talking about, which is how you aim the second arrow at your forehead, and you start utilizing, well, what if it all works out, to grab the second arrow, yank it out of your forehead, and be present in the moment and not escalate things until necessary, you can still tap into your intuition. You can still look around corners, which is a superpower for you. But you don't have to add on the pain that all of the negative thoughts are creating. And there's so much research about this. First of all, stress can actually lead to physical pain. It comes from Dr. Arthur Barsky, who's a professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, where they've done these studies about how stress can lead to physical pain. And let me tell you something. When you start allowing yourself to worry, I'm not going to get into college. I'm not going to be finding love after my spouse has died, or I'm never going to get this weight off, or I'm not going to get control of this. When you start doing that to yourself, it does cause physical pain. And you know this. How many times have you been so stressed out or worried that you get a headache? Or you've been worried before a test and you get nauseous, don't you? Or you start shaking, or your stomach is twisting in knots. That's why we say twisting in knots, because that's what it feels like. It's physical pain. And a lot of times it begins from your nervous system getting triggered. That's the first arrow. And the second arrow is your thoughts. So they've done all of this interesting research. And what they have been able to prove in studies is that the neural pathways in your brain that indicate physical pain, the same ones light up when you have a painful thought. And it is painful to think that you're never going to be happy. It is painful to think you're not going to see your loved ones again. It is painful to think that you're never going to achieve your dreams, or that you're never going to amount to something. That's why I want you to stop it. Scientists have also done this really interesting study where they looked at math anxiety. So math anxiety is literally just feeling stressed out and worried when you're about to do math problems. And the anticipation of doing math prompts a similar brain reaction as when you experience pain. And the researcher, who is a professor of psychology at the University of Chicago and the leading expert on math anxiety, said that it is the equivalent of burning one's hand on a hot stove. And I love knowing this research because it allows you to stop and go, it is true. Because it is painful. It's painful to think these thoughts. And that's why I want you to really steal these 6 words from me. What if it all works out? I also want you to steal this Buddhist teaching and proverb that when misfortune or stress or something doesn't meet your expectations or something painful happens in your life, that is the first arrow. Hits you right in the heart. But the second arrow is the one that you fire back at yourself into the center of your forehead based on what you think about what just happened. And that's the piece that you have control over. Yes, you will always think negative thoughts, but you don't have to escalate it. You don't have to stay there. And you can use these 6 words, what if it all works out, and logic to pause that spiral and to question your thinking. And when you question yourself, well, what if it all works out? The fact is, it just might, right? Like, you don't know. You haven't even entertained that possibility because you've been so busy firing arrows at your forehead. You didn't even stop to think, well, there's a whole different possibility here. And based on the research of Penn State, 91% of the time, that's the possibility. So what the hell am I all worked up about? Because getting worked up, as we know, based on the research at UCLA and from Dr. Judith Willis, it doesn't help me. And here's the final piece. I believe in you. And I believe in your ability to face the things that are painful in your life. And I also believe in your ability to problem solve and to rise to these moments where life is painful and life is challenging. And if something bad is going to happen, I want you to not face it with an arrow in your head. I want you to have your full capacity to think clearly, to ask for help, to solve whatever issue is happening in your life. And that's why this is also important. It's because between now and whenever something amazing or something terrible happens in your life, you have the ability to be more present and to assume good intent and assume a positive outcome. And that is going to help you both enjoy your life, but it's also going to help you face things if they do in fact turn out to be hard, which we know based on the research is about 6% of the time. Those are odds I'm willing to play with. I'm willing to play with those odds. I'm willing to bet that things are okay. I'm willing to bet on you and me and our ability to be more positive, to be more optimistic, to be more trusting, and to live in that space until we know otherwise. Doesn't that sound like a good idea? I think it does too. When you train yourself to reach up and grab that second arrow before it hits your forehead, because you don't know. You don't know. So you might as well coach yourself to think something positive will happen. You might as well learn how to default to positive ideation, where you say, this could be the best thing that ever happens to me. This isn't easy, but I trust that I'm going to grow through it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I think I can figure it out. This is more difficult than I thought it would be, but boy, am I proud of myself for doing this. When you can default to positive ideation, I haven't heard from her in 2 days. She must be having the time of her life. I haven't heard from her in 2 days, but I saw that sunrise, which means she's probably so busy with all the friends she made up there because she was also taking photos of other people up there. She must be so busy. She didn't have time to talk to her mother. And wouldn't that be the most amazing thing that could happen if you went on a 4-month solo backpacking trip as a 24-year-old woman? To be so caught up in the moment that you don't have time to check in at home. Boy, wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? And that's what I am telling myself, because that's what I believe is true. And research shows that getting your mind to focus on positive thoughts, positive outcomes, visualizing, hey, what would it look like if this all works out? Scientists call this positive ideation. It is so effective in beating down that worry. So I want you to try it. Because, hey, what if you use these 6 words and it all works out? Worrying is wasting time. It's robbing you of what you want to do in your life, and it's making you suffer in a needless way. Look, I don't want you to get to the end of your life and look back and think, I wish I hadn't wasted so much of my precious life on stuff that didn't matter. I wish I didn't let all that stupid worrying keep me from doing the things that I always dreamt about doing. I'm here to tell you that you can learn how to switch your thoughts to something more productive and optimistic. This is great news. Worry is a hackable thing. And I'm going to use a ton of science and proven experience to show you just how to hack it using one magical tool. And here's the great news. Once you learn how worry starts, you can use that knowledge to make it stop. You can practice this magical tool every day to quiet your mind. I mean, just imagine that. A quiet mind. Wow. I know exactly how you feel. I mean, I know how exhausting and frustrating it is to constantly be trapped in the grinding cycle of worrying about everything. How do I know this? I lived it. I've always been worried. I mean, if you could be a baby that worries, that was me. I'm sure at 11 months, when my mom was running late to heat up my pureed carrots and potatoes, I was probably thinking, is she coming back? Where is she? I'm starving. I mean, I might just starve to death here. I think she hates me. She's left. Maybe she's angry about the face I made as I tried the pureed snow peas for lunch. Oh my gosh, what do I do? I have to find a new family to feed me. How am I going to find my new family? I got no connections, no money. I'm wearing a diaper. I can't even walk yet. I'm going to starve to death in the next 24 hours. That was baby Mel. And that was just the beginning. I mean, I was just kind of warming up for a life of worry on a very elite professional level. You know, as a little kid, I worried about everything from the teacher's reaction to whether or not the kid in the stall next to me was going to hear me fart. When I got to middle school, it was all about whether or not my tough skin jeans were cool or my acne or my new perm that I immediately regretted. When I was in college, I was worried if I studied enough for the test, if I was going to flunk out, if I was going to go blind from the grain alcohol I drank from the garbage can at that frat party. I worried if I had enough gas in the car to get to the grocery store. The truth about worrying is, once you let it start to spin, it just spins out of control. I'm sure you know this. I mean, worry has tormented me since I was a kid. It tormented me as a teen, in my 20s, my 30s, hell, my 40s. And if I can go from having this worry as my torturous default and learn how to interrupt it and redirect it and program a positive mind, you can too. Here's exactly what you need to do about worry and overthinking. Here's the magical tool I want to share with you. And I got to give you a warning. This is going to sound so simple. You might even start worrying that it's not going to work. That's why I have strung along this episode like it's an infomercial about worrying. because the solution is so simple, and it has to be. When it comes to your habit of worrying, you already overcomplicate everything. If I give you 3 steps to remember, you won't do any of them. That's how good you are at worrying. I need you to have something simple. So I've come up with this incredible way to do hand-to-hand combat with your worrying mind. Are you ready? Good. The second you catch yourself worrying, when you feel your mind spin, when you feel your shoulders pinch up towards your ears like new earrings and you feel your jaw clench, and wait, there's more. You feel yourself starting to get heavy and paralyzed and defeated, and those worries start to spin in your mind. Here's exactly what you're going to do. It's just 6 magical words. It encapsulates incredible research. It's so simple. You can do it. And don't worry, it's going to work. Here are the 6 magical words you're going to say to yourself every time you worry. What if it all works out? That's it. What if it all works out? Look, I know what you're thinking. You feel let down right now. That's because you're worried it's not going to work. But what if it all works out? What if these simple, stupid 6 words actually work? What if trying this works out? You just heard me say the words. What if it all works out? And you know what your response was? Well, I don't think it's going to work out. That's why I'm worrying. You got to trust me on this. Your worries sound just as dumb as this magical tool does. You have just listened to your worry for so long that you believe it. Now, I said this was hand-to-hand combat. You don't just throw one punch. You're going to have to keep on punching. Every time one of your stupid worries pop into your head, what if I don't get the apartment? What if I don't lose the weight? What if I don't get the raise? What if I look stupid my first day of work? What if nobody ever loves me? What if the swamp monster kills me? You need to punch those stupid worries in the face with 6 magical words, because this simple question breaks the pattern of worrying. Because if you think about worrying always begins with what if. In fact, my daughter used to call her worries the what if loop. I feel like I'm trapped in a what if loop, Mom. Well, guess what? You're trapped in a what if loop too. So you need just one fast, perfectly placed, boom, counterpunch. You need the same punch for every worry. So you get really good at punching every worry in the face. And that punch is, what if it all works out? That's the counterpunch you need to knock absolutely any worry and all overthinking away. It's pretty incredible. I'm here to tell you, in those moments when you get trapped in this, what if this, what if that, and you start spinning, you got to stop it. And the fastest way to stop the spinning is to say, well, what if it all works out? What if I get the apartment? What if I pass the test? What if the doctor says something and it's okay? What if he doesn't break up with me? What if he breaks up with me and it all works out? What if I get bad news and it all works out and I'm okay? It's a way to get back the feeling of control. You see, the research shows that when you feel out of control, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain behind your forehead, the part that's in charge of organizing information and making decisions, it basically stops working when you feel out of control. And that's why it's so hard to make decisions, and it's why it's hard to move ahead. You just get stuck in this dark mental loop because you literally are so focused on things not working out that you don't have anything positive to grab onto. What if it all works out? Gives you something positive to hold on to. It gives your brain the ladder out of a dark hole of worry. And all you have to do is step on the first rung. Because the first rung on that ladder out of that dark hole of worry is 6 simple words. What if it all works out? Ask it again and you step on the second rung. What if it all works out? Again, and you're on the third rung. Ask it repeatedly about the same problem, and it's like climbing up the ladder. And before you know it, the ladder, what if it all works out, has got you up so high, you are out of the hole of worry, and you have a completely different view of the situation. Listen, there will always be things that come out of nowhere. We can't stop the outside world. We can't stop the fact that you are probably going to worry about something every day. I mean, hello, global pandemic. People get sick. People say they don't want to be married. Jobs get taken away. The stock market drops. Shit happens. It's easy and normal to feel knocked down by life. But you can always use these 6 magical words to help you ride the ups and downs in life. What if it all works out? Doesn't mean it's going to work out today. One of the reasons why your brain loves the sentence, what if it all works out, is you haven't put a deadline at the end of it. The fact that you're saying, well, what if it all works out, automatically allows your brain to expand out of the current crisis, because you know, based on your life experience, that in the end, over the years, yeah, eventually, it does all work out. And, here's a third reason why these 6 magical words create opportunity, possibility, positivity, and a better situation. And that is because it anchors you in optimism. When you're worried and you say, how will it work out? When is it going to work out? What if it doesn't work out? The how and the when, it narrows your focus. It gets you caught in the worry loop, and it makes your thoughts and your moods spiral tighter and tighter and tighter. The second you say, well, what if it all works out? You just change that one word from how's it going to work out? How's it going to what if it all works out? I mean, come on. And it opens you up. You can just feel the different energy. How's it going to work out? What if it all works out? If you consider that it will all work out, you begin to see multiple paths. How puts the blinders on? It makes things really small. What if it all works out? Opens up the world of alternatives that you have, and it widens the scope. It widens the lens you're looking through, making room for better things to happen. The next time you hear yourself say, what if, and you start bracing for the worst, instead, just insert your new magic words. What if it all works out? What if this turns out to be the best decision I've ever made? What if I look back 6 months from now and this, right now, this was the moment I found the courage to be myself? What if I'm stronger and more resilient than I think? What if something amazing is happening and I just need to believe it? That last one is everything. I do believe something amazing is happening for you. I do believe that you are stronger and more resilient than you think. It will work out for you. I literally have struggled with anxiety my entire life. And anxiety, for this conversation, the way I define it is the habit of worrying spiraled out of control. You may say that you are a worrier. That's not true. You have a habit of worrying. A habit is a pattern of behavior or thinking that you repeat without realizing it. So anxiety happens when that pattern of worrying about things spirals out of control, and now it starts to marry and manifest itself with physical sensations too. That's all that it is. I know that I say that's all that it is. Me personally, I struggled with anxiety, I think my entire life. It became quite acute when I was in my late teens and early 20s. I became medicated in the middle of law school. I took Zoloft for 2 decades. When our first daughter was born, who is now 17, the postpartum depression and the cascading panic was so terrible that not only was I medicated and couldn't breastfeed, but I couldn't be left alone with her.
Wow.
So when I say you can cure yourself of anxiety, I don't say that lightly. 4 years ago, after I had been using the 5-second rule to change my behavior, how I spoke to my husband, how I negotiate in business meetings, how I conduct sales, the kind of parent that I am, my health habits, my eating habits, curbing the drinking, I thought, I wonder if I can use this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing to get control of my thought patterns. Not my behavior patterns, my thought patterns. Yes, you can. Wow. So we're gonna build this conversation, because I want to start with something we can all relate to, and that is, how do you stop worrying, and how do you stop listening to self-doubt? This is how you're going to do it. So all day long, you're going to have moments where your thoughts drift. And I use that word on purpose, because for me, there is a physical sensation when you start to use the 5-second rule and you start to wake up, not only on time in the morning, but you wake up to your life and the opportunities in your life. Your thoughts drift. Like, you'll just be hanging out with your friends, and then suddenly you're like, I'm not sure that person likes me anymore. I haven't heard from my kids lately. I wonder if they're dead, or, as you just start worrying about stuff. Why? Because it's a habit. Because when you're not paying attention, your brain shifts from you being a decision maker and paying attention to you just kind of spinning things on autopilot. And one of your habits is worrying. The second you wake up and you notice, holy cow, I'm talking some negative garbage to myself right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You've just shifted the part of the brain that you're using. You've shifted from the basal ganglia, which is where your habit loops are spinning, and you've awakened your prefrontal cortex. You've also interrupted that pattern. Now what you're going to do, because your mind is actually ready to receive a different thought because of the counting, now you can put in an anchor thought. Like if you have a mantra, if you've got a vision about the way that your business is going to turn out in 5 years, if you just have a thought that makes you really happy and proud, insert that. Now, why does this work? It works because of the counting. And I'm not kidding. We know, based on research, that positive thinking alone, not effective. In some instances, trying to force yourself to think positive can actually make the worries worse. Why? Well, the reason why is because it's really hard to just change the channel. What we have to do first is basically interrupt it and turn off the TV and then turn it back on with the prefrontal cortex awakened. So the counting is essential. And so you can start using this today. You catch yourself talking garbage to yourself, because we all know if I were to put a speaker on your head and broadcast, you'd be sitting here in the audience, you'd be in an insane asylum, because the crap that you say to yourself is insane. And the problem is we listen to it. You'll be in a sales meeting and you'll be undermining yourself. They're not going to buy. Oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. You're not even present. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch it back. Get back to that vision that you have about toasting your success, or this customer being really happy, or you being proud of yourself. Whatever that vision may be, you can control your thoughts. And this is not just us talking about it. This is a tool that you can use. So let's take it a step further. So worrying, if you let it go unchecked, what will happen is you will get used to worrying. You will get used to living in a state where you're slightly agitated all the time. Let me talk a little bit about agitation. So what we know based on research is that physically, in your body, so physiologically, being excited is the exact same thing as being afraid. Let me say that again, because it is so important. In your body, being excited is the exact same thing as being afraid. Your body doesn't know the damn difference. Your heart races, your armpits sweat, you're like, you may get tight in your throat. Your cheeks may get pink like mine do when I get excited. The only difference between excitement and fear is what your brain says. And the problem is, if you have a habit of worrying, guess what you're going to tell yourself is going on? That you're like freaking out. That you're not excited, that something must be wrong. Oh gosh, why would you say something's wrong? Because you got a habit of saying that all the time. Even as I became a speaker for a living, or I'd be on CNN, when I first started doing it, I would be freaking out backstage. But even though, just last week, standing backstage, about to go on, 8,000 people, heart races, armpit sweat, my hands get clammy. I'm not nervous though, not at all. I'm excited. And so I developed this technique, and research out of Harvard, not based on my technique, but something very similar, proves that if you basically, right before you're about to do something, take a test, run a race, public speaking, a business negotiation, ask somebody to marry you, whatever it may be that gets your heart racing, just do this. Go, I'm excited. I'm excited to give that speech. I'm excited to ask him or her. I'm excited to do this race. I'm excited. Because what happens is you give your brain context, so your brain doesn't escalate the stuff going on in your body. Your brain's not worried. Make sense?
Yeah.
So you can combine this with the 5-second rule. So we know how to do worrying. You catch your thoughts drift, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, anchor thought. If you start to feel your heart racing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, to awaken the prefrontal cortex, and then start going, I'm really excited to do this. I'm really excited to do this. Another technique that you can use is ask, I think they call it interrogatory questions, where instead of giving yourself a pep talk, say, well, why am I ready to do this? Why am I ready? Because that'll force you to answer the question, which then convinces you. So why am I ready to close this sale? Why am I ready to give this speech? Why am I ready? So those are two strategies that you can use backed by science that are proven to actually make your performance be much better. Now let's take it a step further to anxiety. So anxiety is what happens when the habit of worrying spins out of control, your body gets really agitated, and then you allow your mind to escalate it into a full-blown panic attack. So for those of you that have not had the pleasure of having a panic attack, let me explain what it's like. So have you ever been in your car and you're driving down the road and you go to change lanes and all of a sudden there's like, oh my God, there's a car right there, right? And you swerve a little bit and then your heart's like, and you may sweat a little bit and you grip the wheel really tight and you're super locked in on the road ahead of you. But then that car pulls away and the near miss scenario passes and your mind starts going, okay, you're all right now.
Right.
You're all right now. That's it. That's all. That's what a panic attack is, only it happens while you're standing in front of your coffee pot. Seriously. You have that same, oh my God, what behind that? And your heart's racing, and the problem for your brain is that your brain can't look around and say, holy cow, we almost got hit by a car.
Right.
Your brain's saying, what the hell is wrong with her? She's making coffee and she's freaking out. And so now your brain has a problem, because what's your brain's job? It's designed to protect you. So your brain will now do whatever it can to magnify the problem. Remember, we talked about the spotlight effect. It'll start telling you all kinds of crazy stuff because it can't figure out contextually what the hell's going on. She's just making coffee, now her heart is racing and she's breathing really. Holy cow, maybe she is having a heart attack. A lot of people that have panic attacks say, I think I'm dying, oh my God, what's happening? Wow. Or you'll see them do the deer in the headlights thing where they got to get out of the room. That is the spotlight effect in your brain, now taking control and magnifying everything to get you out of whatever it was. So here's how you use the 5-second rule. You use it to stabilize your thoughts before the panic escalates. And then what happens is it drifts into worry and then it disappears. Right. So the second you feel worry, you catch it, you train yourself to do that. If you start feeling yourself getting, your heart racing, you can 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and use the I'm excited. If that doesn't work, literally 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just give yourself an anchor thought, literally, of you being okay. So I find myself last year at a very low moment. I am standing in my bathroom. It's a moment I know every woman can relate to. There in my underwear. I'm looking in the mirror. And of course, I am picking myself apart. I'm like, I hate how I'm getting really jowly right here. And I don't like how I've got these like big lines that are starting. And then I notice, I've got this like indent right here that I don't like. And I don't like these like kind of marks right here that go this way on my neck. I've covered them up with foundation. I never even realized. Yeah, and then this boob hangs lower than the other boob. And I'm just picking myself apart because that's what I've been doing for the past 4 decades. That's what almost all women and even men do it too. This is what I'm finding based on the research of the book. And then as soon as my mind is negative about my appearance, my mind goes negative about my day. Oh, God, I forgot to text Lisa back. I need to finish up that report. Oh, my gosh, my first Zoom meeting is in 9. Oh, the dog needs to be walked. And now I'm going down the road negative about the day. The whole vibe is, ugh. And I don't know what came over me, but I just literally had nothing to say to myself. I really felt overwhelmed, just an average low moment. And I found myself, as pathetic as it sounds, raising my hand and high-fiving my own reflection in the mirror, braless in my underwear. It felt good. I put my shoulders back. I felt a little bit like, okay, I got this. And I went on with my day. The next day, there I am again. And my mind is going negative. And I'm like, nope, high five. And that's what the high five habit is. But this is just the beginning. The high five habit book is full of a bazillion tools. But I want to unpack this one because there's so much science here. And for women in particular, this is unbelievable in how it changes you and your relationship with yourself. So first, let's start with a high five. Think about when in your life you have either given or received high fives. What does a high five from someone else or a high five that you're giving to somebody else communicate?
You're on the same team. You're like in it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's also like, I think about it, you give it to somebody before a big play. We got this. You give it to somebody when their attitude's going down. Come on, keep going, pick your attitude up. You give it to somebody in celebration. And so a high five communicates support and empowerment and partnership and trust and celebration. And it's so powerful, and we're so good at giving all of those things to other people. Like you and everybody, especially women. We cheer for our friends. We create birthday parties. We buy people presents. We do work for our colleagues when they're overwhelmed. We help our parents out with whatever. We're so good at cheering for our favorite musicians and buying people stuff. We are horrendous at giving that same support and celebration to ourselves. In fact, we not only don't give ourselves support and celebration, we do the opposite. We tear ourselves down, and we beat ourselves up, and we pick ourselves apart. And every single woman I know is constantly saying, how the fuck do I put myself first? How do I love myself? I know I'm supposed to. Well, I'll tell you how you do it. You put yourself first by doing for yourself what you've been doing for everybody else, because that's how everybody else became first in your life. You need to start to cheer for, support, and validate yourself, period. I realize now that I'm high-fiving myself that I have spent the first 40 years of my life either criticizing my reflection or ignoring it. How sad is that?
It's incredibly heartbreaking and yet extremely familiar to me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women.
Yeah. And believe it or not, a lot of men. There's a lot of men that don't want to look themselves in the eye in a mirror and be with themselves because they're so focused on the things that they haven't achieved or the things that they failed at. And so they're ignoring themselves. They're not being with themselves. And so first things first, when you take a moment in the morning to just stand in front of the mirror and be with yourself, and then you raise your hand in a gesture that you have always associated with celebration, support, belief, and empowerment with other people, there's a number of things that happen that can be proven by research. First things first, this is research out of Harvard. It's recent. They've shown in studies that simply taking a minute in the morning to get intentional about who you're going to be today and how you're going to show up changes your productivity. It changes your level of confidence. It changes how impactful you are as a leader at work and in life. So this moment in the mirror is not to be diminished. This is a moment for you to be able to take a moment and intentionally align yourself with who you're going to be. Second piece of research is from a field of study called neurobics. It basically means when you marry a physical action with something, a thought that's unexpected, you accelerate the development of new neural pathways. And there's famous studies that have proven that if you brush with your non-dominant hand while you're thinking something, it sticks in your mind because you have to focus. Well, the same is true when you raise your hand and high-five your own reflection. You see, you've been doing this for your entire lifetime. So there's already subconscious programming here, Lisa. The second that you raise your hand like this, it is so programmed in your mind to associate belief, cheering, empowerment, celebration, with the high five itself, that it's impossible to go, God, I hate my neck. Boy, is that cellulite ugly. You can't do it because this part of the mind immediately takes over and does all the positive stuff with a high five. It's crazy. Try it tomorrow morning. You will not be able to criticize yourself. Now there's another piece of research around this, which is, when you do a high five, we did one, the first one we did, right? We didn't quite hit each other in the right, good smack. So what did we do?
We did it.
Correct. Because a good high five requires you to be present and intentional. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
All of that in a little high five. And so what I started to notice was that I was in real time shifting my relationship to myself. Instead of criticizing the woman I saw in the mirror or ignoring her, I was developing a partnership, a trust, a sense of self-validation, I have my own back. I see you, Mel Robbins. We're going to have a great day today. We got this. No matter what it is that life is going to throw at us, you got this. That's how it all started. And then, of course, I put it on my story after a couple weeks of doing it, and people around the world started to post pictures of themselves doing it, and then all of their stories started rolling in about the difference that it was making. There was one woman that said that she's been struggling with body dysmorphia for 20 years, cannot look in the mirror, and after 5 days of doing this, can stare at herself in the eyes with a grin.
5 days.
5 days. And the reason why is because of the lifetime association that you have with doing this for other people. So when you try this tomorrow, here's what I want you to do. Stand in front of your bathroom mirror and take a moment and just be with yourself for a second. And then if there's resistance to raising your hand and high-fiving your own reflection, what is that resistance? And here's some of the sad things that people are saying that I think ring true for all of us. I think most women can relate to this. Remind me to tell you the story about the reticular activity system, the RAS in the brain, and my metaphor of doing laundry.
Okay, you are in my go zone for sure.
I know you are. You have all people on the planet.
You're in my
you
zone.
are the one that is going to go, oh, this is so good.
All right, we're going to laundry after this.
So the 5-second rule. So the 5-second rule is desperate. Are you kidding? It is brilliant, but the story is desperate. It's 2008. We're in the middle of the housing crisis. My husband has followed his dream and gone into the restaurant business, opening up a string of little pizza restaurants with his best friend. We were new entrepreneurs, so of course, when location number 1 was great, what do? Complete idiots. We cash out our 401ks, our kids' college savings. We get a home equity line because that's free money. We cash out the credit cards. We ask friends and family to invest. We go all in. And then Chris and his business partner, as is the case in the restaurant business, the second location was a huge dog. Too big, too expensive, wrong location, tons of traffic driving by every day as you're sitting there with an empty restaurant knowing you're These guys are so committed to returning an investment. I have to hand it to Chris and Jonathan. They work day and night to pull this plane crash out of like the factoring and this and like just anything you could possibly do. So we find ourselves in a situation in 2008, 41 years old, and we're $800,000 in debt.
Wow.
Dude, I could not pay for it. There was a moment, the rock bottom moment was this morning where I went, and we live in a nice neighborhood. Friends have invested. We can't let them know this is happening.
Boy.
Kids, 3 of them under the age of 10.
Oh my gosh. Whoa.
I remember going to the grocery store. And I went to an Ivy League school. I have a law degree, but here I am unemployed. We've lost everybody's money. We're about to lose the house. And I'm doing that. I don't know if you've ever played this sort of like mental bingo game with your check card where you're like, okay, please, dear God, let the electronic system not talk to the bank. Just let it go through.
Absolutely, yes.
Please.
Yes.
So I'm standing there as she's scanning this stuff, knowing that the balance is red. And I'm thinking, please, 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 just let this go through, please. And the woman looks at me and says, oh, this was declined. I was ready with my excuse. I would always cock my head and go, well, that's weird, because it just worked at the gas station, which was a complete lie.
I've done
and
this.
Then I'd be like, okay, kids, let's go to the car and get my other card. And we would walk out of there and leave the stuff, and I'd get in the car and drive away.
Oh, my gosh.
And then I, of course, would come home and drink to numb all of the everything. So I was sitting in a chair, and I was doing that thing. I'm sure you have. Have you ever been in such a low moment where you give yourself a pep talk?
Yes.
That is a pathetic moment.
I have been there, yeah. You're taking me back to it.
Yeah. You know, that's it, Mel. Tomorrow morning, it's the new you. No more drinking. You gotta be nice to your husband. You gotta look for a job. Girl, you gotta get these kids on the bus on time. And by God, woman, when that alarm rings, you have got to get out of bed. You cannot lay there like a human pot roast marinating in fear. You cannot hit the snooze button 4 times. You have got to get up and get the day started. And then, honest to God, what happened is a rocket ship launched across a television screen. It was probably the 4 Manhattans that gave me this idea.
Say, are we
it's really stupid, you know? And
Such
I
a great
thought,
storyteller.
that's it. Tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings, you got to launch yourself out of bed. If you move fast enough, Mel, you will beat the anxiety. You won't be in the bed when the anxiety hits. So the next morning, and this is the power of the 5-second rule. Now keep in mind, I didn't know any of this at the time. A lot like the high five habit. It was this super simplistic moment that changed everything. And what changed everything for me was the very next morning. It was a Tuesday in February outside of Boston, Massachusetts.
I'm familiar with that location.
And the alarm rings. And what I'm about to share with you, if you've never heard this, you'll never see life again the same. You never will. Once you see what I'm about to show you, you can't unsee this. There is a 5-second moment of hesitation that defines your entire life. It's the moment of hesitation that is the gap between what psychologists call a bias towards thinking and a bias towards action, right? The moment you have an impulse to move, to say something, to do something, you'll start hesitating as you think about it. If you don't physically move within those 5 seconds, your basal ganglia takes over and you drift into a bias toward thinking. If you can manage what you think and do in that 5-second window, you know the secret to changing any habit, any behavior, any thought pattern. Now, I didn't know that then. All I knew is I had thought of this dumb thing while I was drunk, and now it's February in Massachusetts, and it's dark and it's freezing. The alarm goes off. I start thinking, I'm not gonna fucking launch myself out of it. This is the dumbest. How is this gonna help? I don't want to get out of it. It's cold, it's dark, it's dark. I start reaching for the snooze button, and then I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I stand up, and I'm like, that's weird.
Oh my gosh.
I go on with my day. The next morning, same thing. I immediately remember it's dumb, I'm not doing it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I stand up again. It was the third morning, and look, I'm like you, somebody that I'm like super optimistic, but really resigned, you know what I mean? Like kind of skeptical, even though I'm really positive. Like, yeah, prove it, you know, like that kind of thing. So I'm like, okay, I start arguing. Okay, so you invented some stupid ass thing that helps you get out of bed. How the fuck is this gonna pay off $1 million, right? And then I'm like, whoa. You're about to lose everything, woman. What do you got to, like, why not try it?
Right.
And so this was the simple thing I said to myself. Any moment today, I know what I should do, but I don't feel like it. Just count backwards, see what happens. I'll explain the science around this thing in a minute. So I walk into the kitchen, and there's my poor husband, Chris. Love of my life. We're celebrating 25 years married next week.
Congratulations.
Poor guy standing there minding his own business looking for breakfast. And you know how that thing happens where you see somebody you love and you just want to kill them?
Yes.
You know? So there's Chris, and I'm like, and you know, here's the thing. I knew he wasn't trying to bankrupt us. I knew the man was working us. I knew he was full of shame and like scared and like felt so bad. And here's the other thing I knew. I knew I didn't want to get a divorce.
Okay.
I knew I didn't want to treat him like this. I was so triggered. And here's why. It is so much easier, Ed, to be angry than it is to be afraid.
And they're closely related, aren't they? But you checked the anger button. Yeah.
So I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that counting backwards, here's what it's doing in your mind. It is interrupting habit loops and emotional responses that get stored in your basal ganglia and run on autopilot and control your fucking life. And when you start counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the moment you start counting, you've made a decision to interrupt the pattern.
Oh boy, yeah.
And by the counting backwards, when you first start doing it, it engages your prefrontal cortex because it requires focus. By the time you get to 1, you have created a moment where you have taken control and you now can consciously choose what you think or do next. And so I used it every single day in secret to walk away from the bourbon, to pick up the phone and call insert network, 54321, go out the door and exercise. 54321, don't snap at the kids. 54321, get out of bed even though you don't feel like it. 54321, tell the truth. Reach out to friends. All the things, because here's the thing. We all know what we need to do. We don't know how to make ourselves do it.
Do it.
So the 5-second rule, I never intended to tell anybody. You'll love this story. In 3 years flat, I go from unemployed to cold calling my way into a radio audition and getting a job at a digital marketing agency because we had bills to pay. And I end up with this little Saturday morning show that ends up doing really, really well in Boston, WTKK. And then it gets picked up by Cox Media, and I end up winning an award called the Gracie Award. And CNN calls, and they're like, we love radio hosts. We love how you talk about complicated topics like you're sitting at a kitchen table. We don't want Fox News to have you. You're in, woman. And so I became a legal and social commentator paid by CNN.
Incredible.
So my life is turning around. Chris and Jonathan are working day and night to get the business. They end up opening more units, and so that gets turned around. Our marriage gets better. I'm not in personal development. We still have liens on our house. We're still trying to figure it out. This is 2011. And somebody calls and is like, hey, your college roommate said you've changed your jobs a lot. Would you ever come give a talk about it at this thing called TEDx? I'm like, I've never given a speech before, but okay. I used to be a criminal defense attorney. I thought I can do this. Wow. This was the first TEDx conference. So there was no real major protocol, right?
Okay.
So I show up with my 20-minute speech and no prep.
No prep.
If you watch my TEDx talk,
I've watched it.
You will see me having a 21-minute long panic attack on stage. If you look closely, I have a chest rash that comes on from anxiety.
Okay.
I'm darting all over the place. I forgot how to end that speech.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're really nervous. You forget the end. Yep.
And so I pause at the very end, because that was not about the 5-second rule. And I look out into the audience and I go, oh, there's this thing I do. I call it the 5-second rule. The moment you have an instinct to move,
come on,
you got to move in 5 seconds or your brain will kill the instinct to move. I was so disassociated, Ed, I gave out my email address on stage. And then I left. And I went back to my life at CNN and back to working hard with Chris to claw our way out of debt and prove our marriage and pay our bills. And I'm not kidding. We got the liens off our house just 3 years ago.
No.
And so a year goes by. So it's now 2012. People start messaging me on Facebook about this speech. And I'm like, oh, were you in San Francisco? They're like, no, I saw it online. I'm like, it's online? I didn't even know.
My gosh.
It gets 1 million views within a year. People start to now, 2013, ask me to come talk. I have no formal speech. I'm not even really talking about the 5-second rule all that much.
Okay.
I'm sort of mentioning it in this speech. It's starting to spread. I'm now up at night with a bottle of wine, answering emails from people in India and, Bali and the UK about, I've lost 100 pounds with this count backwards thing. Why is this working? And because I work at CNN, I can email somebody like Dr. Amen and say,
why is it working?
Yeah, can I interview you about this little brain hack?
Wow.
Is this not incredible?
That is incredible.
There is
I didn't know this.
Other explanation other than the universe or God said, this is something that needs to get out into the world, and this chick is the one who's going to do it.
Unbelievable.
Because I'll tell you what, it takes some very big balls to stand on a stage with 20,000 people and convince an arena full of people that you can change your life by counting backwards from 5.
I know, it's so simple.
And believe it with every fiber of my being. And so I now understand the science, but more than that, I have the real life stories of literally hundreds of thousands of people. And we know of 111 people who have not committed suicide because they have counted backwards. We know of veterans that are retraining their reaction to triggers associated with PTSD. Obviously, it does not regulate a dysregulated nervous system. It gives you a moment of control. It works with OCD. We have pediatricians using it with kids to interrupt the thoughts that cause anxiety. Over and over and over. The things that you know what you need to do. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool you can use in 5 seconds flat to interrupt the that's holding you back and push yourself to take the actions that change your life.
I'm listening to you. I think you're brilliant.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.